Okay, I have a job to do today, and it involves my 2016 Honda Pioneer 1000. This is the EPS model, and that stands for electronic power steering. And it's just one of the features that you can get with this line of Honda side-by-sides. But anyway, what I need to do today is a service on it. It is due. It's actually past due. And this is the first service that is required on a new model. I've actually had this about a year now. We used a golf cart around here for a long time, and it just got to a point where I needed to upgrade to something that was going to be more reliable. My golf cart was starting to have multiple problems, and something that I could cover more ground and a little bit harsher terrains than what my golf cart would afford me to do. So I thought it was time to move up to a gas-powered side-by-side utility vehicle, whatever you want to call them. There's kind of different names for them. But anyway, I decided on the Honda. So what I'll do is take you through the service first and show you what's involved in that for this particular model of side-by-side. And then when I'm finished, I'll kind of take you through this Honda Pioneer and just kind of tell you a little bit about why I decided to get this particular one. So as far as the service is concerned, I just ordered a kit online. I went to good old Amazon, and this is what they sent me. This particular service is going to require 6.1 quarts of oil. So the kit gave me 7 quarts. It also gave me both filters. My primary filter and my transmission filter comes with the kit. Also, it comes with new washers in the event that I need them. It also comes with an air filter. Now, all this was very nicely packaged, and I've taken it out already in preparation for the service here. This is a new seal that will go around the housing where the air filter is going to go. So they put that in there as well. That's pretty cool. And I didn't know what this was when I first got it. I'm like, what the heck is this? Come to find out, they even give you a funnel for your oil, because I looked at this before I was getting ready to do this and was just kind of thinking about access to it and what I was going to need. And come to find out, they actually give you a funnel that you can use for putting your oil in, because the oil service port is actually kind of difficult to get to. And they actually provide a little paper funnel for you. So I'll try that out and see how it works. But anyway, that's what that is. All right, so let's get started on this service. All right, the first thing that I need to do is I need to get up underneath the bed. And this has a tilt bed, so I have a handle right here. Open up the door, lift that up. It is gas shock assisted. That's a very nice feature, by the way, which is one of the things that I liked about this. And so what I want to do is get down into this area down here. That's where my filters are going to be located. So the first thing I need to do is I need to start popping off some of these little caps right here, and I need to get this cover taken off so that I can get access into that area, which is where the fill port is located. But the filters are located down here on the side. The primary filter is there, and then the transmission filter is there, what they call the dual clutch transmission filter. So I have 2 of those right there that I'm going to have to get to. So what I'll do is I will start by taking this cover off right here. I also need to take this cover off because this is where the air filter is located, and I have a new air filter for this that I'm going to put in as well. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to take this cover off right here. I don't need to take all of this off, this entire thing that covers the top of the engine and transmission and that kind of thing, but I do want to take this access cover off, and being that I am going to get to this air filter as well, it has kind of a little skirt right here that kind of covers up any debris from getting down on top of the cylinder heads. These are pretty easy. Just put a small screwdriver in there, just kind of work that tab out, and then you can kind of pull this whole thing out of those slots that they're in. Hold on to these little things, lose them, and then you got one of them that's not secured properly. So just kind of keep track of those. These are very similar to the kind of things that you see on cars in terms of getting plastic panels off, that type of thing. So I'm just going to get this out of the way, and I'll show you why I'm taking this off in just a minute, because I need to get access to another tab, and this little skirt is actually in the way. So I'll pull all these off. I'm going to give my impressions about some things related to this Honda since I've gotten it. My overall impression is that I do like it. It's a great side-by-side, but there's little things like this that are kind of irritating. I mean, give me something a little bit easier to get to than that right there. Now, this panel right here, what I want to do is I want to take it off, and what you do with these particular tabs is you push down the center of them. And you'll see what I'm talking about right here. And this is why I took the skirt off, because the skirt was covering this one. I could have just lifted it up. But, and then once you push those down, then it allows you to just kind of pry this up. So it's slightly different than those other ones. So there's another impression. Why make them different? Why don't you just make them all the same? Okay, so I got those covers off, and the reason that I had to take those covers off is because here is my oil fill right here on the top, and then down here is my dipstick. So it's just easier if you take this off. I mean, I could get to the dipstick probably without doing it, but the oil fill was going to be covered by that enclosure there. So, and then the skirt needed to come off anyway because of the air filter. So let me go ahead and go through the same process and get the air filter off. Okay, in order to get the air filter cover off, they are held on with bolts that have a hex head on it. And it is a 3/16 hex head that I am putting down in there. I've already broken them all already. And so I'll have to go around through here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10 of these total on there. So they definitely did not want an air filter cover to come off there. But a 3/16 hex head, and they weren't a real high torque. And so now I'll just go through the process of pulling all those off and get the air filter cover off. really think I needed to change that air filter. It looks brand new. Alright, but anyway, my kit came with a new one, so I will put a new one in. Alright, so I got the air filter off. You can see where all the fastener locations were all the way around it. And then there was one more that was actually holding the air filter in place. So it wasn't just a cover that holds it on, but it was also at least one more fastener. But anyway, that looks good down in there. I don't have any, we just really haven't abused this thing since we've had it. And so everything's still pretty clean. So what I am going to do at this point is go ahead and loosen up this oil fill cap right here to let that cavity breathe a little bit, and then I'm going to crawl up underneath it and open up the drain plugs. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. Okay, so I just went up underneath the machine and I pulled the two plugs that are required to drain the oil. One of them is a case drain, the engine case drain, and the other one is the dual clutch transmission drain. Those are the two oil levels that you want to drain out of. Those are the two cavities for this particular service. There is the primary transmission that would be changed at another interval. It's not at this interval. I could take you up there and try to show you the plugs that I'm talking about, but the best thing to do is just show you kind of a crude drawing that I made. And so if this is the underside of the vehicle, this is the back, this is forward, and this would be a cover plate that covers all the vitals underneath there. It's not a steel plate. It would be nice if it was. It's actually just kind of a thick plastic plate that's up underneath there. But what you're looking for is there's various cutouts in this plate that's up underneath there. But the ones that you're most interested in are the two oblong or oval looking cutouts that are towards the back of the machine. There is another one that's about mid-machine. That's your primary transmission case drain. You don't do that one on this particular interval. The two that you're interested in are the two oblong looking ones that are in the back. One of them is sideways, left and right oriented, and then the other one is kind of off at about a 45-degree angle. These are the two that you want to take off and drain those oils out of there. These are also 12 millimeter. Both of the bolts are both 12 millimeter. And so just to make sure you don't inadvertently drain the primary transmission, that is not 12 millimeter. That's a larger size. So if you accidentally got on that one with a 12 millimeter and it won't go on, that's because you're on the wrong one. These are the two that are oriented towards the back of the machine that you're interested in. All right, so I think just showing you that diagram is much easier than just showing me up underneath there struggling to get bolts out. So that's what you want to look for, is the two that are in the back, not this one. This is actually about mid-machine is where this is. But those two in the back that are 12 millimeter, that's what you're looking for. Okay, so now what I am doing is I am taking off the filters. One of them is the dual clutch transmission filter and the other one is the primary engine filter. These are 10 millimeter bolts. I have already loosened these up. And this primary engine one actually has another bolt that's right up here that I actually had to get onto with a 10 millimeter wrench. These other ones I was able to get to with a socket with a short extension on it. But this one up here, just because it's kind of behind this frame right here, I couldn't get up and get on it clean with a socket. So I used a 10 millimeter wrench on that. So I'll go ahead and pull these out and put the new filters in, and then we'll be ready to fill it back up with fluid. Okay, so I pulled the old filter out, and essentially that whole thing comes out of that location right in there by just pulling it straight out. And then the way that you want to orient this filter is it actually tells you outside towards filter cover. So that way you don't get it, you don't try to put it in there backwards. So put it back in like this, and then I will put it back in. So just make sure you don't lose that spring. Okay, so now I've got the dual clutch transmission filter out as well. It also has a spring that's associated with it, so once again, just be careful about that. And then once again, it tells you right on the outside here what side should be out. So this says outside, and spring towards filter. All right. So there we go. It even tells you exactly how it should go. So that's how it should look right there. This one was just a little bit more difficult to get out. It's a little bit of a tighter fit right in there for that one. So I had to actually use a pair of needle nose and just kind of grab the very edge of that filter and just kind of work it out a little bit. It wasn't hard, but it doesn't just pop right out like the engine one does. So anyway, we'll get that one back in. Also, the other thing is this does have a seal around it. So just make sure that that seal is not damaged. The seal does not come in this kit. So if that seal did get damaged, then that would be something else that you would have to order. And it doesn't come in the kit. So, all right, so let's get everything all oriented back on again. And let's get it all put back on. Okay, now we are ready to put the oil in. And I got my little paper funnel in there. I like it. It works, I think. Well, we'll find out when I start putting some oil in it. But anyway, I got the air filter put back on and the cover. I've got the filters put back on, and everything should be good. I was a little disappointed that even though I had already drained this, that when I pulled that engine filter out, it still had quite a bit of oil in there, and even though I had a bucket up underneath it, most of it ended up on my driveway. So, and I don't have any zip dry. I'm out of it, so I'll try to get that up as much as I can. A lot of it went down in this pan that's down underneath there, so I'll try to clean that out as best I can. But there was still a, like I say, it was probably about 1/4 of a cup that was still in that main filter. So a lot of oil still came out of there. So something to keep in mind. So anyway, what it's calling for is 6.1 quarts of oil. This is the standard Honda oil right here. The GN4 4-stroke motorcycle oil, 10W30. 6.1 quarts. So I'll use my paper funnel and let's see how this works. All right, that paper funnel's working. It's not the easiest access up underneath here. This is my first service that I've done on this. I'm way behind on this service. I should have done it about 100 miles ago. And when I bought this thing last year, the guy, I talked to their head mechanic, the guy that had been to all the schools on this particular machine, and we went through it all. And he told me emphatically, make sure you do that service at the scheduled time. And I didn't. just one thing led to another. I was actually going to take it back into those guys because there's a couple of recalls on this. They're minor, and I've already checked into them to make sure that mine is not affected by these recalls. But I had every intentions of just taking it into those guys and let them do it, and then at the same time they could check into the recall stuff. And I called them to ask them about it, and they told me to just drop the machine by and they would get to it in about a month. And I thought, well, you know, I'm not doing that. This is something that we use here every single day. And, you know, I didn't want to be without the machine for a month. So I didn't do it, and I just told myself I would do the initial service myself, and then of course, you know how it goes. You put it off, and then I waited 100 miles longer than I needed to. But anyway, it's being done now, and everything looked fine. I mean, the oil looked good. The filters that I took out of there didn't have any shavings, any metal, anything like that. The air filter looked brand new. I actually had to look to find any even minor debris that was on that filter. So everything looked fine. And as far as any of the recalls that they have contacted me about that would affect this machine, I have not seen where I have any of those problems. So even though I waited a little bit longer than I should have, all in all, I think the machine's fine. All right, that's 4, 5. My filter's working awesome here. I like it. That's 5. Then it's going to be number 6 here. It says 6.1, so you know, my experience on these kind of things is don't just throw it all in there right now. I'm going to go ahead and put about 5.5 in, and then I'm going to start checking it. So this is 32 ounces. All right, so there's 16 right there. So let me take it down to about half of this one. Then I'll start checking it a little bit more. So right now I have about 5.5 in it. So let's just let that settle for just a second, and then I'll come back and do a check on it. Okay, I stopped at about 5.5 quarts. I just wanted to kind of meter myself into this oil level because they call for 6.1 quarts. But I want to show you something. When you take a measurement on this, right now I'm going to take my dipstick and I'm going to screw it all the way down. Okay, so that it's all the way in and secured. And then I'm going to pull it back out. And I'm going to look at this reading. All right, and I know I have 5.5 quarts in there. Now, I don't know how well you can see that, but that thing is showing oil all the way up to the top line. But I know that that's not correct because I only have 5.5 quarts in there. Right now, granted, you are going to crank this and you're going to let some of that settle. But the way that you're supposed to check the oil on this is that you don't screw the dipstick all the way down. What I do is I put it in, I'll turn it until about one thread catches. So it's not all the way down. Okay, so that's about what I have right there is one thread. And then we look at this and you can see that my oil is just barely showing on that stick. Okay, so that's the proper way to do it. And this is a very, very small, from empty to full, on this dipstick gauge. It's a very small range in there. So the proper way to check this is to put the stick in there and don't screw it in all the way. Like I said, I just put it in just far enough until about one thread catches, and that might even be a little too much, but so you don't screw that in all the way when you check this. So right now at 5.5 quarts, I still have a little bit more room, and so that's good. That's a good way to check that and make sure you're putting the proper amount in. All right, so a little bit more oil. Okay, so I put the 6 quarts in it. It looks full to me right now. I could let it sit for 10-20 minutes and let that kind of settle for a second. What I'm going to do is go ahead and crank it. With 6 quarts in it and it calls for 6.1 as a max, it's not going to hurt anything at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and crank it, let it run for a minute or so, and then I will let it just sit and settle and see if I can get a accurate reading. I'm always kind of concerned when something says 6.1 quarts. I mean, that's kind of precise. So let's see. Let's just crank it and see how we're doing. All right, I have what I believe to be 6.1 quarts in here. That's kind of a tough number to get exact. And as we can see right there, it looks like it's a little bit more towards the top than it is towards the middle, but I think we're good. I'll run it and then I'll check it again, but I think we're pretty good right there. That is just such a small little area to try to get precise, especially when they're telling you 6.1 quarts. My goodness. All right, so anyway, I believe that I have this serviced. Okay, let's call this service part of this done, and then let's talk about this machine a little bit. All right, my tire inflation tool. These things are really cool. This is made by a company called PCL Air Technologies from Sheffield, England. And these are really great inflation tools. You can take the tire pressure reading, and then as you're filling the tire, you just you stop occasionally. All you have to do is, when you're filling the tire, you're pressing down the handle, you stop, and it'll give you an immediate reading of what your current inflation is, or what your current pressure is. Okay, I just finished my first service on my Honda Pioneer 1000. This is the EPS model, which stands for Electronic Power Steering. That is kind of an upgrade from their base model. I'm not sure that they still offer a base and an EPS. This is a 2016 model. So maybe for 2019, maybe they're all EPS. Maybe there are still base models. I'm not sure. So if I'm not accurate on that, then that would be something that you just kind of figure out when you're looking at them. There's a lot of these side-by-sides out there now. This is one of the fastest growing markets in in ATVs, side-by-sides, UTVs, off-roading, that type of thing, and the aftermarket accessories that are associated with them combined are the fastest growing off-road market in the country. I was shocked to find that out. But after I got mine and I started looking at some accessories and things like that, I came to realize that, yeah, there's just a bunch of stuff out there. So for me, why the Honda Pioneer? For a long time, I just did not want to buy one of these. We had a golf cart around here that we used, and I lifted it, and I put a more powerful, a more high torque motor on it, and that kind of thing. And for what my wife and I, did around our farm here, it worked for a lot of years, and I just didn't want to buy one of these for $16,000, $17,000. I just put it off. And then it just got to a point where, we were doing some things in the back part of our property, and I just wanted to be able to get back there quicker than what the golf cart could do for me. There's only so much you can do with the torque and the power of a golf cart. Some of them are pretty impressive, I'll admit. I mean, the 48 volt and the 72 volt versions that they have out there now are very, very torquey. But when I got to looking at possibly buying one of those, I was getting very close to the price of buying an all-out side-by-side. So if that was going to be the case, then it was just going to be a matter of which one was I going to be interested in. And I got to be honest with you, I looked at Polaris immediately, because that's the, that's probably the head of the class when it comes to these side-by-sides. Of course, Kawasaki's got their version, Yamaha's got their version, Can-Am. I'm leaving some names out, but there's all kinds of manufacturers that are in this market. But I got to looking at the Honda, and one, I like the fact that they offered a, I think it's right at 995 cc, so basically a 1000. I like the fact that it was a lot of power, a lot of torque. This thing's about 72 horsepower. With the original suspension and wheels and tires that came on it, it's right at about 10.5 inches of travel as far as clearance is concerned. Now, I've upgraded the wheels and tires since then. I have not touched the suspension because it's more than adequate. And the other thing that I was absolutely sold on is Honda's accessories that they offer, not just what's available for aftermarket, but what Honda offers. And I was sold. And so when I got to looking around at these, I found this particular model, and it was a year old. I bought it last year in 2017. This is a 2016. And they had put a roof on it with a windshield. And these already come with the doors. So that wasn't anything that you had to add. Now, the windows that I have put on there was an addition. And the rear window that I put on there was an addition. But I was already way ahead of the game with a roof and a windshield, and they already have doors, and so all I had to add was the windows and the rear window, and I was well on my way. And the reason that I wanted that is in the wintertime, we like to close it up just like we see it now, so that when it's cold, wet, and rainy here in Georgia, and we're going from the barn, which is way back here. This is 99% of what we use it for, going from the barn all the way out to our pastures, which that little run right there is about a quarter of a mile, and we make that run twice a day. And so this is primarily what this gets used for. And then it's got a big bed area in the back where we can put just about everything that we need. I added the rack in the front, although I had one of those on my golf cart, so I figured we would use it a lot. But come to find out, we use it occasionally, but just not that much. But it's still there for for extra cargo if we need it. So with that being the case, we wanted to be able to close it up in the wintertime and make that run. And then in the summertime, those windows on the doors, they unzip and fold down. The window on the back unzips and folds down, and the window on the front pops out. All I have to do is just turn 2 levers in there, one on each side, and the window pops out, and I can get full ventilation through that. So I can convert it from a summer mode to a winter mode. And that's just one of the things that I was looking for, and Honda was just all over that. They already had the accessories. Polaris, if I wanted to do the same thing to one of their models, was going to cost me right at about $2,500. I did it on this one for, well, it already came with the roof and the windshield, and it already had doors, and that's just the way that they come. So just adding the windows in the rear window, I was able to do that for probably right at about $600-700. So that was just a huge selling point for me, is that Honda offered a lot of things that would just turn this into something that I really wanted to do. And so I'm not going to get into everything that I've done to it at this point, but just some basic facts about this is it has a 1,000-pound cargo capacity in the bed. It has a 2,000-pound towing capacity. The machine weighs right at about 1,500 pounds. Like I said before, it's right at 1,000 cc's. I have added the aftermarket wheels. The wheels that I have put on it are KMC XS 811 Rockstar 2 wheels. They are 14x7. And then I also added aftermarket tires. Those aftermarket tires are GBC Canati Mongrels, and they are 28 inches. So just from going from a 27-inch, which came on it with a 12-inch wheel, going to a 14-inch with a 28-inch tire, obviously gave me some additional ground clearance. I didn't actually measure it to see exactly what it is, but it obviously gave me quite a bit more ground clearance. Ground clearance so far has not been an issue. Although we use this thing primarily to run back and forth from our barn to our pasture, obviously I use it for other things around our property. We have 50 acres, and the back part of our property has a lot of horse trails. There's a swampy area that you go through one section, if it's wet and it's been raining, and put this thing in 4-wheel drive and it just breezes right through it. So that's a reason why I bought this particular model. And of course you can see that, I put a light bar on it, and the grill guard on the front, that is a Honda accessory that I bought to go with it. I put the hook up front. I put that plate on. I welded the hook mount on there. There is obviously a winch that you can get for it. I just didn't feel like I would need it. So I just put a hook on there, so in the event that I do get it stuck, then I can just grab one of my other vehicles and go drag it out. Tractor or Bobcat, another vehicle or whatever. But, if I get more into doing some off-roading with it, then, I probably would put a winch on it. But also, this is a 3-seat version. They come in a 5-seat version as well. I didn't want the 5-seat version because we want the bed space. We throw hay back there in the evenings. We put the horses' food in there. My wife comes home after stopping at the feed store, and she'll have feed and other stuff, salt blocks and things like that we'll be taking up to the pasture. And so we wanted the room in the back. You just sacrifice a lot of room if you go with the 5-seat version of these. I could say more about it. You can get your bed space back with that 5-seater by folding the seats down and that kind of thing. It just wasn't anything that we were going to need. The extended This extend-a-bed right here, that was not designed for this, so don't think that they come with these 3-seaters, that you can get them with these 3-seaters. I actually bought one that did not fit it, and I cut it and welded a bar in there to make it fit, and it's worked out. It's worked out great. So that was just one of my modifications. But anyway, that's just a couple comments about why I bought the Honda. So far, you know, we've had it about a year. It has right at about 300 miles on it. And I just did my first service. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, I was way behind in doing the service on this. In all honesty, I should have done it at 100 miles, and I didn't. But I was checking the oil. I was looking at it. It looked good. You know, coolant, that kind of thing. So I felt pretty confident that I was going to push it just a little bit until I could get some time to do it right. And then I did that service today, and everything seems to be okay. So that's my thoughts on the Honda Pioneer, about why I bought it, and some of the accessories that I put on it. The accessories that I put on it, I'll put a link in the description of this video so that you can kind of look at what I did. And so there it is. Honda Pioneer first service is done. So it's ready to rock and roll for, I think the services now get done every 500 miles, not 500 hours, every 500 miles. So this first one was done right around 300. I'll set the gauge on the instrument panel in there to remind me of another service, and then off we go.